Okay, welcome everyone. So you're listening to the slightly hoarse version of me, but I'll do my best to give you the intro. Um, Kevin James Wilson got his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Illustration at the Rhode Island School of Design. He's executed murals for the world's largest children's museum, the Indianapolis Fire Department, J.C. Penney's, just to name a few. He's also taught airbrush and drawing at the Indianapolis Arts Center for 12 years. He's been highly active all throughout our state, especially the Penrod Arts Fair, Talbot Arts Fair, Hoosier Salon, Black Expo, Indiana State Fair, Butter, and also the IMA at Newfields. In 2020, Kevin was voted into the prestigious Indiana Artists Club, and in 2022 was elected the president of this 120-member organization. I'll get this list just so you know who you're dealing with. Kevin's services have included being in illustration, graphic design, art direction, murals, portraits, still life, figure drawing, body painting, fine art, computer graphics, workshops, teaching, storyboards, exhibitions, and demonstrations, in addition to being a visiting artist. So his real passion is in fine arts, including portraits, murals, and especially drawings. So please give a warm Herron welcome to Kevin James Wilson.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I am really glad to be here, very blessed to be here. I tell you what, though, I know we're having a Q&A here, trying to do it at the end. Rather than talk to you, I really want to talk with you. So at any time during this presentation, if you have something you want to ask me, a point you want to make, please just raise your hand. I will acknowledge you. All right? Can we do that? I said we're going to talk, so it means you got to say yes. Okay. All right. As far as my background, what you're seeing, I know they wanted me to talk a little bit about my journey. What you're seeing on the screen is actually a pencil drawing. This is Prismacolor pencil on, I believe it's Canson paper, and it's a toned paper, almost the color of the wood you see back there. I started working on colored papers. A lot of you know is when you do your paintings will come out a lot brighter if you tone the canvas. This is the same thinking with this. I started working with colored pencils on black paper when I was in college. Actually, it was on gray that I actually started, and when I saw how the colors really jumped, that was when I went to black paper. But I don't use it for everything. I do use the black paper for a lot of things, but again, I like the way the color really jumps on the paper. One of my earliest influences was Norman Rockwell. My mother used to collect these things called top value stamps, and he always did the covers for them. And I can remember being about 4 or 5, and my brother showed me one of the covers, and he said, "Hey, that's Norman Rockwell." He said, he's a very good painter. I said, "That is not a painting. That is, that's a photograph." So, me being like 4 or 5 years old, I run to my mother. She tells me that's who it is. I started waiting for the covers every time because I wanted to see what he did, what the next cover was. Graphic design, I'm going to tell you right now, how many fine artists do I have? How many are studying fine arts? Good. How many are studying graphics? Just a few. Good. Now, you fine artists, I'm going to tell you something. One of the best things about graphic design, because I know a lot of fine artists can lay down some lovely paintings, but they can't even design a business card. The number one way, what's the number one way to spot a graphic designer? Who knows? Who can tell me? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It is with text. It is with text. It's the number one way I can really spot a designer. This piece you're seeing here is all done in Adobe Illustrator. This is when I was living out in Las Vegas. I worked for a company. We designed the glass for slot machines. So this piece I came up with called Fat Cash. It was one of my favorite designs I ever did for them. This one was for, it's a friend of yours, wasn't it, Suzanne? For Tom and Chandra, for Cypress Grove Inn, I'm sorry, Cypress Grove Inn logo I came up with. Everything I do starts from sketches. I'm gonna tell you guys that right now. I got my sketchbook up here right now to follow my notes, but the thing is, you guys are familiar with Charlie Brown and Linus and Lucy? If I was Linus, this would be my sketchbook. I mean, this would be my blanket. Seriously. I've got sketchbooks at home, and I should have taken a photo of it, that go back to 1979. They're in a tub that's so large, I can't even lift it myself. I'm serious. But everything I do starts with sketches, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later as to why I believe that's so important. I've been drawing since I was about 3. Um, and yeah, it's just what I do is not really a way of living. For me, it's a way of life. And I say that because my wife is here on the front row, Suzanne. I think when we first got together, she might have thought that I was, what's the word? I'm not going to say anal because if you go in our kitchen, I turn around all the labels on everything on the shelf. Does anybody know why I do that? Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever gone into, let's say you had to go into a Meijer, a Target, something like that, a Walmart. You're like, you know what? I got to get this box of cereal and I'm getting out. And you go in there, you make that beeline, you get that cereal, you come right out. You have a dream that night. You can see everything that you did not realize you saw in that store. Has that ever happened to anybody? Okay. The reason why I turn around all those labels and even how I watch how I pattern things on the shelf, even when she and I are at the grocery, I'm carefully putting things in there. I'm always practicing design. I'm constantly practicing design. I really am. This ad I created for the Indiana Artists Club because we're always looking for new members. We just juried in 5 more. We're at 155 members now, the oldest artist organization in the state. I took that really serious being juried in the Indiana Artists Club because there's only one thing that talent respects. What is that, people? I think you got that right. What was it? It is other talent. That is the only thing talent respects is other talent. Where are my football fans in here? Who watches any of the games? You ever notice at the end of the game, that quarterback is not going down there to find that guy who didn't play, is he? He goes and he finds the other quarterback. That's the only thing talent respects is talent. I want you guys to remember that. There's another version of the Fat Cash. Again, it all started with one of my drawings. Scanned that drawing into Illustrator and built everything else with gradients. This is when I was working for Recharger Magazine. I was their graphics director. Graphics, what is your average time to produce something? Talk to me. Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. Or yes, person. Okay. Usually on these covers, I had about 2 hours. And we went to press on Wednesday. Between Monday and Wednesday, and this is why you're going to live and die by deadlines in this business. You've got to learn to meet your deadlines. Usually between Monday and Wednesday, I had about 40 ads to create and make sure they were in the right place. About 40. Next piece here, another one that I created. This is Adobe Illustrator, no, Adobe Photoshop and InDesign, as a matter of fact, also Illustrator for some of the text. If you see in the background, I use the airbrush tool to create the sparkles and things that you see like that. I was an airbrush artist for years. That's really all people thought I could do for a long time was airbrush. This is a marketing piece. How many of you have a marketing piece? Why not? What does that mean? Is that your marketing piece? What's kind of mean? Okay. How many do you have? When are you going to produce your next one? Excellent. Because let me ask you this. Again, I was an art director, like I said, for years. In my desk, I had probably 75, 80 resumes of people with 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. Okay? If you sent me a marketing piece in, let's say, November, okay? And you're like, you know what? I think I want to send him another one. Come March, you send me the same marketing piece. What's the message you're sending to me? Exactly. You're not working. You're not producing. And again, this is the importance of using type so you know what to make come forward, what to make recede. The piece at the top right is an acrylic painting. It's part airbrush and part traditional acrylics. I used my daughters for that piece when they were much younger. It's called The Wonder. It was actually created for a show over at, let's see, where was that? Clues Hall. The show was Courage and Hope. But that's one of my favorite paintings. It's 36 by 48. The one at the bottom is where I took one of my drawings. Again, I scanned that drawing into Photoshop and airbrushed him in Adobe Photoshop. It's one of my favorite ways to work. This piece at the top is called The Kings of the Castle. I photographed the guys at White Castle when they weren't looking. I tried to do it before when they were looking. You should have seen these guys. They were very riot. And at the bottom is how it appeared at the airport. How many of you are familiar with the Indianapolis Arts Council? Very good, very good. How many of you have a portfolio at the Indianapolis Art Council? Okay, lie to me. How many, let me see your hands go up. How many of you got one? I said lie to me. That means you're supposed to raise your hands. Okay. Anyway, you should really put up a portfolio at the Arts Council. You can do it as students. They'll have you do online. You probably put up 15, 20 pieces of your work, a short bio. Again, this came through the Arts Council. One reason why you should do it is because your taxes are paying for this anyway. Seriously. The competitions have really helped me to get a lot of notoriety, okay? This was at the airport for about a year. These are two book covers that I designed for a company called Liquid Silver. Again, time is money in this business. One of these covers, probably I got to the point where I could knock these out in about 2 hours. Sometimes I'd knock out 5 in a week, do the math, at a cost of $200 a cover, okay? When she saw what I was doing, she actually hired me to be her art director. So she was paying me an additional $700 a month just to contact other artists. Not only that, like I said, I could do as many covers as I wanted. What you're seeing at the top again is one of my pieces from Welcome Race fans. The original drawing is only, I think it was only about, what, maybe 12 by 18, Suzanne? Because I sold the original not long ago, scanned it into Adobe Photoshop, added all the logos, all the text that you're seeing there. You'll probably see another shot of this down the road. And again, this is the importance of using text. You see the ad at the bottom for Gallery 42 when they were having their Art of Speed. And like I said, everything starts from my sketches. At the top, you'll see the show, you'll see the announcement for my show Anthology that I had in 2023 at the Harrison Center. How many of you are familiar with the Harrison? Very good, very good. And again, the notoriety really helped because they called me and asked me if I wanted to do a one-man exhibition. He gave me the main gallery and I was really, really humbled by that. Really, I was very humbled by that. The piece that you see at the bottom was Homage to Mr. Rhythm. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Indianapolis. He used to dance at the corner of 38th and College all the time. Remember him, Greg? Yeah, he was always out there dancing, and I live in that neighborhood, so when he passed away, I wanted to do a piece of him that I actually had shown at the Meet the Artist show at the library downtown. This one of Wes Montgomery, now this one is colored pencil on black paper. I was asked to create this illustration for the Old National Center. They contacted several artists, and everybody could pick a different artist, and I believe these should be hanging there, at least a print of it. Again, I added the text. They asked me to come up with a date and everything, make it look authentic. But I had a lot of fun creating this illustration. This one, again, is also small. If you have a tight deadline, work smaller. Your work can always be shot up. Okay, if you have a tight deadline, you got to get it done, work smaller. This piece, again, was when I was at Recharger Magazine. This guy didn't have a top of the head. The box you see I photographed on the table. I mean, just all these things in the Photoshop. You've got the power of Photoshop. The key is don't make it look like you used it, but you have the power of Photoshop, you know? You guys are creative people. You create a way to make things work. I always say this. A basketball in my hand is worth the cost of a basketball. You know, you put it in LeBron's hand, then it's worth millions. And you guys are like LeBron. You guys can do things in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign that other people cannot do. Remember that. Always remember that. This is one of my, I think this was the first cover I ever did for Recharger magazine. And you see at the top where it says advertising for a one-man exhibition on the right corner. That's what happens when you're in a hurry. So make sure you check your work. This was the very first piece that I designed for them. You guys are going to go to interviews. They're going to look at your portfolio. One of the most important things that I ever learned to ask at an interview was this one question. They would look at my portfolio, look over my resume, and I would ask them, is there anything I can design for you right now? And by doing that, they gave me this copy. They gave me the printers and everything. Everything was on an exploded sheet, as I call it, because they wanted to see how I worked. They saw me do my sketches first, then they saw me put this together in less than 2 hours. So always ask them, is there anything I can do for you right now? Let them see how you work. They want to see how you operate that computer. Basically, as a designer, when you do that, you are showing them how you think. These two are logos. I love logo design. The first one is for the series that I call The Art of Love, like the very first drawing that I showed you. So I put that one together in Adobe Illustrator. The one at the bottom, the spot, this was actually for a karaoke bar in the Philippines. So again, I had a lot of fun designing this. I love logo design, all right? This next piece at the top, I call that one Words in Motion. What's that say? Foreplay. That was actually airbrush on canvas. The one at the bottom, RD, Ray Donaldson, played for the Colts, also for Seattle and for Dallas. He's a good friend of mine. And since he was a lineman, he was asking me for a logo for a apparel wear company he's doing called Get on the Line. So I was really trying to make it look like him. Does that make sense? To give the letters some personification there. So he was happy with it. So I did not charge him for this because he had already paid me. Years ago, Ray gave me a purebred Rottweiler. So yeah, you're gonna be surprised some of the things you're gonna get in this business, really. This one, the reason why I'm showing you this is because, like I said, the number one way that I can really tell a graphic designer is how you use text. I used to love the challenges of having an ad that was 99% text just to see what I could do. Yes, go ahead. Okay, wait a minute. I need you to speak just a little bit louder. Oh, no. When I started working with computers, when I started working in graphics, we used something called line tape, things like that. We were using T-squares. I had to teach myself computers because by the time computers came out, I had been out and they really started taking over the industry. I had been out of school probably a good 4 years. And so I really had to teach myself the computer end of it. Like I said, because I started working professionally in 1981. Okay. That was when I graduated school in 1981. And I immediately started working professionally then. Does that answer your question? Okay. Very good. But again, like I said, I love working with all text. Remember, small, medium, large, light, medium, dark, overlap where you can. It's really simple. This is one I did for the Indiana Artists Club as we're trying to get new members in. This is one of my favorite ads. What you see at the top, how many of you were here for the NBA All-Star game? Okay, because that was one of the basketballs that that was the basketball I designed for Crispus Attucks High School, the only school I wanted to do because that's where I graduated. While I was at Crispus Attucks was where I had the Saturday scholarship to Herron for 2 years. And then what you're seeing at the bottom is one of the t-shirts I had designed for the 2020 Crispus Attucks High School reunion. I had designed it, didn't get one. Isn't that something? You guys are gonna run into all kinds of stuff like that. In my fine art, if you really, I wanted to pull this piece in because this is an older drawing, but if you really want to make something look round, you don't darken it on the edge. You darken it in the center or off the center. Look at her arm and you see where the darkest part is. Look at the shadow coming through the cheek of her face. If you really want to create dimension, that's what you have to learn to do. This is all graphite pencil. Now, what I'm showing you at the top is how I actually draw. I break everything down to structure. I draw from basically 3 shapes: an ellipse, a square, and a rectangle. And I take it from there and then I render it. What you're seeing at the top is what I actually call drawing. A lot of people can render, but they can't draw. Why is that so important? Your structure tells you where to render, where to put your lights and darks. Some of you have had the experience, I already know, of having a graphite drawing, not covering it well, and it gets smeared. Am I right? Okay, one of my drawings got, I had a couple drawings that were that way when I was in Milwaukee, shortly after school. And my cousin, who was always, he was always interested in art. And so I said, come on, I said, I'm gonna teach you how to render. So I was teaching him how to retouch my drawings. So people coming by our house and he's like, look, you can't tell what I did and what Kevin did. I'm like, shut up, fool, you can't draw. Taking credit for my work. But that structure, you're going to see a lot of this. It's really, really important. And it'll give your work a 3D feel. Now, I'm going to tell you guys one other thing. If any of you ever wanted to work for Disney, they demand that you learn how to draw like this. That's the drawing I showed you earlier, called I Adore You. And again, these are shot from people that I know, as a matter of fact. The woman worked with my wife, as a matter of fact. I liked the challenge because when she came in with the earrings, the necklace, the blouse she had on, she's like, is this too much? And Suzanne's like, no, he likes this type of challenge. And I really do. You've got to challenge yourself. I mean, don't you want to see how good you can be? Really. This is all structured out of Bob Marley. Okay. This was in my sketchbook. I took this one in, scanned it into Adobe Photoshop, and airbrushed over it. This one is in progress. Again, I shot this one of Suzanne's best friend and her husband. And again, you can see this one being worked on black paper. There's the finish. Excuse me, miss, you're on the front row. What's your name, please? Tristan. Tristan, and as you can see, what I did at the bottom to turn this into a marketing piece. You see what I mean? The other thing is, how many of you have a business card? Just a few of you? Is it standard size, 2 by 3.5? Okay, because I see artists, and I just talked to an artist the other day. He showed me a business card, 2 by 3.5. He had like 3 or 4 pictures on it, and I'm looking at it like, honestly, you guys, I have not used an actual business card, a standard business card, in about, it's been over 20 years. Suzanne's holding what I use now. Yeah. I use postcards now because people really appreciate the image. It has taken me a lot farther than just that standard business card. People like to see images of your work. So again, I could turn this in. This is basically just another marketing piece. Same thing with this one of my daughter. This is called Rachel's Roses. This drawing is like 36 by 48. I've got about 450 hours in this drawing. The only pencils I used were a scarlet red, black and white. I just used black and white to create all the halftones. I didn't use actual grays. And again, this is me just challenging myself. And again, this is another one that's structured out. You see all the line work to get it three-dimensional, so that when I get it in color, it's going to look like that. This one was just in the Indiana State Museum with the Hoosier Salon. So again, we shot this, I think I shot this on my iPad, didn't I? Yeah, because we didn't have a camera then. I shot this on my iPad at our friend David and Linda's house. And then we probably shot, what, 75, 80 pictures of them? Yeah, I think we shot about 75 or 80 pictures. This one really, really struck me. This is one of my favorite pieces. This drawing is called Reflective Refuge. And we shot this one in our dining room. I wanted you to see part of it in structure, because again, a lot of people don't really believe this is how I actually draw, but I do. And again, that's the drawing part. I know we live in an age now where people take a photograph, they just shoot it up and they trace around it. But no, I actually draw from the ground up. That's the finished piece. That is the finished drawing. I think that one had about 150 hours in that one. Yeah. This one also for Daryl and Sharon was a commission piece. This one is a combination of pastels and Prismacolor pencils. Again, we shot this at their house. We let them choose which one that they wanted. This was a commission piece, like I said, and this was the one they chose, which I was glad because I really did like the emotion and the feeling in this piece. That's one of a friend of mine, Micah. She wanted to work with me. I was really glad because she really had a different look. She really did. I wanted you to see the structure of it. And again, if you want to make something look round, do not darken it on the edge. Look through the center of her hand and through her arm. Okay? Light and shadow is also very important. Learn to use light and shadow, extreme light and shadow. Because for a while, like I said, I could really draw something, I could make it look realistic, but something was missing. And once I really started using extreme light and shadow, my work got a lot more dimension. This one, again, I wanted you just to see the structure of this. This is something that I just did in my sketchbook of my daughters when they were younger. There's the Rottweiler that Ray gave me. But you see all the lines tying everything together. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And you'll always be able to find a relationship. An object is relative unto itself. It really is. It's very relative unto itself. So I really, like I said, this is what keeps me polished. I'll go back for a second. This drawing right here with all the rendering, I tell you guys what, if I did not do another rendered drawing for the next 3 years, but I kept doing this, I guarantee you I'm going to stay polished. This is why I have so many sketchbooks. Because like I said, I've kept the majority of them. I think I've given away maybe 6 of them, simply because so much of my life is in there. So to people who really mean a lot to me, I'll give them a sketchbook. But the majority of them, like I said, are in my studio, in a tub, and then I probably have at least 6 on the shelf ready to go. Yeah, I mean that big, yeah, the big plastic tub. Yeah, we got some in the bathtub too. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This again is that other Welcome Race Fans piece. Again, this came through the Indianapolis Arts Council. This was for the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. That was what, 9, 10 years ago? And they chose 33 artists. I was glad to be selected because I am a racing fan. But again, the original drawing was really small. You know, computer technology is so good. You guys do know that's why they changed the $100 bill, because the computer technology is just so good they had to change it because too many of them were getting, they were getting counterfeited, okay? But like I said, the original drawings really, you know, was really small. And yeah, like I said, I was really glad to be a part of that. This piece, black and white pencil on black paper. That one was, I'm proud to say, was sold to Colette. What was Colette's last name? Why am I forgetting her name? She was the CEO of Newfields. Yeah, she came to my home and bought this piece. Yeah. But this was one of my favorite drawings. We call that one Rhapsody. And this is pretty much what I'm working on right now is a musical series. Because when I had my show at the Harrison, just about every musical piece that I had sold. I think all but one. I mean, all my musical pieces went. And I don't know if it's because I'm a musician myself, I can just feel the music, but it's not necessarily the musician that I'm trying to capture, but like with the Art of Love series, it's the emotion that I'm trying to capture. This is another drawing. This one was only 11 by 14. And again, this is when I was doing a series of hands and faces. And I was just doing studies of hands and faces. And this is how your work can always benefit you because later on I submitted it for a high art billboard. I had tried for 4 years to get one. I finally got one in my 4th year. So this was really cool. Jessica really liked it. She was another friend of mine. I usually, like I said, friends and family are who I asked to model for me, really. And I've learned not to use the term model because you guys know as artists, we're used to that. You know, you're used to walking into a room and doing nudes. And so usually when you say model to somebody who's not an artist, the first thing they think is, do I have to be nude? No, you don't. No, it's not about that. So I've used the term, do you want to be the next actor in my next drawing? This piece of my wife, Suzanne, again, we shot this one in the dining room. This is Prismacolor pencil also. I call this Suzanne's Solitude. One of my favorite drawings. Like I said, we shot this in the dining room of our house. And again, you see the use of light and shadow. Again, it's really, really important that you guys learn to do this. I try to use as much natural light as I can, okay? This drawing is the one on my postcard. Now, where are my Photoshop users? Are you out there? This piece was probably pulled together from about 12 different images in Photoshop. It started as a guy. There were no sequins on this one. I took the sequins like the idea from the other piece that I showed you. There were no sequins. The earring is the one that I'm wearing that I put on Suzanne and photographed her. Same thing with the necklace, all the bubbles in the background. This is black and white pencil on black paper, okay? I started really, really getting to my fine arts when I was in Las Vegas. I went out to Las Vegas. It was shortly after my mom had passed. This was probably moved out there in 98. She had passed away in 96. It was in Las Vegas that I really, really started getting into my fine arts, even though I had always done my fine arts because I majored in illustration. One thing about majoring in illustration and being an illustrator, you have to be ready when the phone rings. So this is one reason why so much of the artwork in my house was produced. And number two is because I just love to draw and paint. I really do. It's not a way of living for me. Again, it's a way of life. It really is a way of life. So I always wanted to really be ready. So I was always producing a piece, working on a piece, entering a show here and there, but I was doing it more for fun. Not like I'm really doing it now, more as a profession. But when I got out to Vegas, again, there was so much graphic design work that I literally got burned out on it. I could not wait to get a job as an illustrator. And when I did, I got to tell you guys, I hated it. And the reason why was because I love to create on my own. And after creating for 7, 8 hours for somebody else, when I got home, there was nothing left. Yeah, you're right. There was nothing left. And I still believe the real money's in freelance, because I remember the very first billboard I created. I was working for an ad agency at that time. I was making about $18, $20 an hour. I knocked this billboard out in 3 hours. So, you know, This like 60 bucks, right? The first one that I did, no, the second billboard I did as a freelancer. I think I knocked it out in about 6 hours and made 500. So yeah. So you got to remember, if somebody can afford to pay you $18, $20 an hour, how much are they really making? Think about that. Okay. Again, this one, Becca, shot this one over a light table. This was one of my postcards for years. This one has been in the Indiana State Fair, Hoosier Salon. This was in Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, now that I think about it. Yeah, this one's really traveled. And again, it's 22 by 16, black and white pencil on black paper. Any questions? Let's talk. What can I tell you? Please. Yes. How long will those sketches take? Well, because I work in structure all the time, it's gotten a lot faster and a lot easier. Sometimes what I have to do is I have to do 1 or 2 generations of it. So let's say I'm drawing you right now. I'll do it on tracing paper. I may have to lay another sheet of tracing paper on top of it to correct what's not working. But I'm usually at the point where I can do it in 1 or 2 generations. And sometimes I can do it in 1 generation. I really can, because I've been doing it so long. I mean, like I said, that's what you're seeing. You know, this is me sitting in the mall board one day, you know. I mean, and you guys are going to have to learn to make time for what you do, because there have been times when I've had to get a project done or get something done, and Susanna and I've got to go to the mall, and I'm like, hey, you have to drive because I need to sit over here and work on these sketches. Really. Who else? What can I tell you, please? I'm only here to help you. Yes.
What is like one of your best pieces of advice for after graduating, getting yourself out there and finding work? Like, what has worked for you successfully in finding work, especially after graduating?
Because you repeat like a short word for recording, because the recording people can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you just short before you answer the question, if you just kind of.
Okay. So you're asking me, what would you do as an artist? The first thing that I thought my job was to tell the world that I was an artist. And I'm gonna tell you guys, one of the things that worked for me was taking a sketchbook with me everywhere I went. I came home on spring break in 1979 once. And in my mother's living room, she had an ebony magazine. There was an article in there on Muhammad Ali. I read the article and I said, I'm gonna meet him one day. Got back on the plane, on my way back to Providence, Rhode Island. This woman sits beside me. She sees my sketchbook. She says, are you an artist? I said, well, I'm a student. She said, can I see some of your sketches? I said, sure. I showed her some of my sketches and she said, you do portraits? I said, yeah. She said, can you do a portrait of Muhammad Ali? She said, I'm a diplomat for the state of New York. I said, yes, I can. I did the portrait for her. I mailed it to her. She said, if you want to come to New York and present this to Muhammad Ali, I will fly you up here. So I try to tell the world that I'm an artist. Again, the postcards, we hand out the postcards all the time. I'm not on Instagram and Facebook enough. You really, really need to post more than I do, about 4 or 5 times a week. But your job is to tell the world you are an artist. It really is. Be serious about it. Let me ask you guys this, the ones who are getting ready to graduate. When you graduate now, what are you? Are you an artist or are you a business person? Both. You're right. You do not separate them anymore. Because when I'm going to buy art materials, we're looking at the gas gauge, we're tracking the mileage. So when we get there, we can write off the mileage. When I'm in there filling the papers, I'm an artist. When we get up to the register, yeah, I need my receipt because I'm a business person. So you do not separate those two anymore, okay? One of the best things you can do is also start off in your immediate circle, family, friends. When I first got out of college, I remember, especially at Christmas time, you know, we had this family gift exchange. And so since I didn't have money, I would do a painting or drawing for somebody. Well, as I remember the year that I started to progress, I went and got people gifts. And they were like, well, wait a minute, you gave them a painting last year. Where's mine? I'm like, oh, okay. You know, so you have to tell the world you're an artist. And if you love it, it's going to be great for you, but you have to love what you do. You really do. One of the things that I really loved in my career, I taught for over 25 years at a small school called International Business College on the East Side. They had graphic design, computer graphics, medical, dental, and so forth. When they downsized my program in 2022 was when I went full time as an artist. The majority of my students, we sent a lot of them to Gannett, which owns Indy Star News. I had one young lady who ran the entire website for Indianapolis Motor Speedway for like 5 years. Now, again, as you're learning and you're growing, learn to take chances and risk. Because when she took that job, about 4 of my students passed it up because she worked as an intern for about 4 months. A lot of them didn't want that job. When they put her on full time, she got paid well. Not only that, they flew her to every IndyCar race in the world. In the world. So you've got to learn to take some chances, okay? Learn this too. Some of your victories are going to be quiet. And what I mean by that is when I was in Vegas, I remember getting a phone call because I had sent out resumes and samples of my work. So I get this phone call. This woman's like, we're trying to find Kevin Wilson. I'm like, you're speaking with him? She's like, we saw your resume. We really like it. They were putting together a TV show. And so she asked me, we probably spoke for about 45 minutes, and she said, do you have small children? At the time, my daughter was just born. And I said, yes. She said, well, this may not be the opportunity for you because it's going to take you away from your home for a lot of times. And, you know, so I really respected that. So I passed that one up, but it was a quiet victory because TV show went on to be something called CSI. Okay. Let me think. Is there anything else? What do you guys want to know? Talk to me. Yes. What do you want to do? You know what I would do? And I got to be honest with you on this. I would speak with a printmaker. Now, I know every school is different. Rhode Island School of Design is one of the best in the nation. They did not require that their teachers had a master's or a bachelor's. They wanted you to get up there, know what you're doing, and be able to communicate that information. One of the professors that I saw every day in the illustration building was Chris Van Allsburg. How many of you know that name? One. You don't know that name? I bet you know his movies and his books. Jumanji, Polar Express. Yeah, I said hi to Chris one time. He looked like I owed him money. I never spoke to him again. Okay. But the thing that I would really advise you to do, and I can put you in touch with some, seriously, is to talk to some printmakers, okay? Really talk to some printmakers. I can put you in touch with a couple of them after this is over. And I want you to see what they tell you. If you want to teach, some institutions will require that you have a master's. Where I taught at the Arts Center and what I taught at International Business College, they did not require me to have a master's. I was actually tired of going to school at that time. I got to be honest with you. Going all the way through, I wanted to get out and I wanted to work. So again, it all depends on what you're looking for. Of course, if you wanted to work in fine arts administration or something like that, you probably would need a master's. But again, I've got some printmakers I want you to talk with, okay? And they will talk with you. All right. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Do I have any more tips about it? Wanting something to appear round. Not at this time. What I showed you was really outside of making a plug for myself. Coming in as a visiting professor, I could show you. Seriously. It really is just about, I say it this way too, it takes a lot of courage to draw. And I say that because sometimes we draw with so much Like we're afraid to make a mistake. People ask me, you know what, the drawings that you guys saw, especially the structure drawings, those are done in ink pens. That's not pencil. That's what I like to draw with our ink pens. In our bedroom, there's a cup that probably has about what, 30 ink pens in it. In my studio, there's a drawer that probably has about 60 ink pens in it. In our living room, there's a cup that probably has about 30 ink pens in it, along with an additional drawing table that's down there in our living room. In our kitchen, there's a cup that probably has about 20 ink pens in it. In our dining room, there's a cup that probably has about 30 ink pens in it. Seriously, because that's what I like to draw. One reason why I started drawing with ink, it made me really stop and think about what I was doing. I see this with a lot of artists, not just young artists. There's a coordination that comes between your hand and your eye. How many times do you see somebody draw, they start, and you don't see any lines, and all of a sudden you see lines appearing on the paper? It's because they haven't let the coordination sync between their hand and their eye. You see what I'm saying? I draw, like I said, with a lot of lines and a lot of shapes, and it has never steered me wrong. I think structure is probably the most accurate way to draw without a ruler. I've seen it in my own work. Okay? Anybody else? Yes. Two of my favorites, ballpoint pens. Yes, I am. No, nothing fancy, just ballpoint pens. Yeah.
He does small abstract. He doesn't do, portraits.
Sure.
Interesting. So that's why it's following that. So you use different thickness. I know it's ballpoint pen where you could do like different, like fine, ultra fine. Is there any use of preference?
Well, you're asking which pens I draw with. I like the medium point. I really like the medium point. I like the ballpoint pens. I like the way they flow. I like the feel of the ink on the paper. And again, inanimate objects will teach you how to draw. And what I mean by inanimate, I know this may be tough to see, but I'll do my best. Things like that will teach you how to draw. Because if you can draw this shape, then you can draw an arm, you draw a leg, draw a neck. Those shapes don't change. What you're drawing will change, but shapes that you use to make those things do not change. Does that make sense? Really? So this is why, I'll grab some things out of the China cabinet and just sketch. Let's just stay polished. Does that make sense? Really? To do that just to stay polished. One other thing that I want you graduates to know, how am I doing on time here? I know you got about a minute. One of the things that I want you graduates to know, when you are going out showing your work, presentation is key. Presentation is key. One of my favorite artists that I know, who was a mentor of mine, who has become one of my best friends, Mason Archie, talks about how when he comes out, he makes sure that he's usually in a jacket, whatever. You guys don't go out there looking like clowns. You want to be taken serious. You may be an artist, but you're going into a world with business people. So make sure they take you serious. Now, how am I doing on time? Okay. Because one of the other most important things that I want to tell all of you, is that Christina back there? Hey there. And I think she'll agree with me on this. And Greg, I know you will, for sure. This is one of the most important things I have to tell all of you as artists that we do not talk about enough. The mate that you choose is going to be critical to your career, because you want somebody who supports what you're doing as an artist. I'm not talking about supporting you financially, but you need somebody who supports what you do as an artist. Because I'm sure some of you probably had parents or friends who said, why do you want to be an artist? You can't do that. Now, to have a person that you're married to or whatever who doesn't support you, that is huge. So make sure the person you really bring into your life really supports what you do as an artist. I mean, I've seen Greg Hall and his mate together. It's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing to have somebody who really, really supports you. I've talked with other artists who tell me, I mean, one young lady I know who was very, very talented. And she talked about the man that she was with. She said, you know, Kevin, I'm trying to work. And he looks at me and says, when are you going to be finished with that? You know, or things like that. I'm telling you guys, because you guys know as artists, we wear our hearts on our sleeves a lot of time. And when you are emotionally hurt, how hard is it to create? So I'm only speaking truth to you guys. I'm only speaking truth to you guys. So really, really be conscious of who you bring into your life. All right? What else can I tell you? Yes. Tell them they missed out. I'm serious. You cannot take it serious. I mean, are you talking about, you asked me how I dealt with failure and rejection. Are you meaning from an art show? Are you meaning from a job? Which way? Sure, sure. You guys heard a question? How did I deal with failure and rejection? Let's see. One of the things that all of you are going to have to deal with, and sometimes this is one thing that I want a lot of you to know. Sometimes rejection is not going to come from the fact that you're not good. It's going to come from the fact that you are good. And some people, I hate to say it, are going to look at you and say, how can you be that good? You're female. Yeah, it's still there. Don't think it's not. It's like one guy asked me, one of my students asked me about racism one time. He said, well, my grandfather told me that racism stopped in 1964. I'm like, yep, just like a faucet, just turn it off. So, you know what? When somebody rejects me or whatever, I look at it as a point of, okay, now you're out of the way so I can get to the people who do want my skills. You see what I mean? And you have to understand it's only somebody's opinion. I don't get in every exhibition. I've never met anybody who does get in every exhibition. So you just learn to just keep it moving. And here's the other thing. If you really, really do your best, and I know that sounds cliche, that rejection really won't bother you. I started teaching at the Art Center when I was 25 years old. I was teaching with some people who were in the field, who had been in the field longer than I was old. I mean, some people had been in the field 30 years, 40 years. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because the faculty always had an art exhibition. And I'm like, are you kidding? I got to put my work up against this person, my work's going to, and that's when I really, really said, okay, you know what? As long as I do the best I can, then there's nothing else I can do. It's kind of like if you come to me and say, hey, you got 20 bucks and I reach in my pocket, I give you 17.50 and all the lint in my pocket, I can't give you anything else. And that's the way I do with my artwork. I really do. I go in there and do the very best I can. And the other thing that I do is my competition is me, because every time I do a piece, I say, okay, now the next one, I'm gonna blow that one away. I'm serious. That's really my mentality. I'm gonna blow this one away. Okay? But just understand it's only somebody's opinion. You won't get every show. You won't get every job. But when you do get them, go in there and do the very best you can. That way you can walk away knowing there was nothing else I could have done. Okay? Yes. That is a very good question. She asked, what was one thing I keep in my contracts? to protect myself, and that's really good. One thing that I put in there is a 50% or a third, it depends on the job, non-refundable deposit. Because if I've got materials, time, and labor and research going in there, some people call it a kill fee, which you can negotiate if they kill the job. But mine is for a 50% non-refundable deposit. The other thing that I do is if a client, especially somebody who may want to commission or fine art, if they want to commission me to do one of my pieces and they're like, when can you come by? I said, nope, here's my address, you come see me. Because I consider myself just like Meijer, just like Walmart, anybody else. If you really want something, you go to them and you get it. Because I used to lose a lot of time running around and chasing people, because we have a saying in our house: there's real money and there's AMO money. Get the real money. Real money is cash, it's Cash App, it's Chase, it's Venmo. You guys know what AMO money is, right? I'm gonna have you do this. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna pay you. Stay away from that. Because if I had all that AMO money, I'd be a rich man. Okay? Now, one of the other things that I put in an illustration contract for sure is for the return of my illustration. Because what they are doing is, you are doing an illustration job, it should be photographed, the original should be returned to you. Now, I got to be honest with you. Some people are not always ethical. They haven't always returned them, because you have contracted me, let's say, to do an illustration for this magazine, okay? You didn't say, okay, I want this illustration, photograph it, and you come back later and it's hanging in their office. No, that's not what you paid me for. Know what you are selling. Where are my fans of Superman in here? Do you guys know what happened to the guys who wrote Superman? They sold everything for $50. Superman has made over $20 billion and they're not entitled to any of it. So you have to know, yes, how to protect yourself. We give a certificate of authenticity with every piece of artwork that I sell. I can also stipulate that this work cannot be reproduced, okay? A lot of people don't understand that even if you sign your name, you put the little C on there, even if it's handwritten, that protects you for 50 years after your death. Are some people unethical? Yeah, they're still unethical people. You're always going to have to deal with them, okay? But you're really wise to try to educate yourself. And that's why I really applaud you on that question, really. Because I do remember years ago, there was a guy who had bought some of my drawings. And he had bought one, he had commissioned me, he saw another one that he wanted. And when I gave him the price, he turned to his wife and he said, we're going to make prints out of that one. And I was like, huh. Luckily, he had AMO money because he never bought the piece. But for the next 2.5 or 3 years, I didn't sell one piece of artwork because I was busy educating myself on rights. Okay? Is there anyone else, please? Yes. Why do I keep creating? I should let my wife answer that question, because when I don't create, I get grumpy. It's like a fire in me. It's like I have to. I've done this all my life. I love what I do. I love drawing. I love creating. And like I said, even when there were no exhibitions and shows, I was still creating pieces because this is what I do. Again, it's not a way of living for me, it's a way of life. I'm just that passionate about it. The other thing is, too, that kind of goes with your question, but not really, but it's something I want to share with all of you. Remember who you are. And, I talked about the only thing that talent respects is talent. There was another artist that I haven't seen her in years. Her name was Lisa Freeman. And I remember being at the Children's Museum and I'm doing a mural there and I see this other mural, really nice. I'm like, who did that? I see her name, Lisa Freeman. Then I'm flipping through Indianapolis Monthly. I see this illustration for the zoo. I'm like, who did this? Lisa Freeman. I'm like, I'm walking around mad, like, "Man, she everywhere, you know?" And so a friend of mine was having a show one night. He was actually not only a friend of mine, but he took my airbrush class and he was nervous about it. He's like, "Kevin, I want you to show with me." I said, "Man, this is your show." He said, "Please, man, just put one show in there. I need you there." He said, "No," he said, "Put one piece in my show." I said, "Okay." So I put one piece in his show. He had like 20 pieces in his exhibition. And all of a sudden he said, "Kevin, I got somebody over there I want you to meet." And I said, "Who?" And he said, "It's Lisa Freeman." I said, "I can't meet her." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because it's Lisa Freeman." So he said, "Man, stop being stupid. Come on over here." So I go up there to meet her and he introduces me to her and she says, "You're Kevin Wilson." I said, "Yes." She said, "You have no idea how much I've admired your work and how long I've wanted to meet you. So I want all of you to remember who you are." Okay? Now let me ask you something. Why do you create? Okay. All right. Well, I can tell you this too. One of the things too that may help you answer that is on your time, not for a professor, not for a job. Make sure you're creating what you want to create, not something that's going to be judged by anybody else. Because with this climate that we are living in, the world needs beauty and it needs our creativity. Anybody else? Yes.
What is there in my practice or like for companies to reach out continuously, like showing your work? Like, I'm not sure like where to start.
Okay. So she says, as a graphic designer, are you saying what should you prepare in your portfolio? How should you prepare yourself? You know what? The first thing you have to do is step out there. And what I mean by that is when I first started, I wasn't sure. But here's the thing. I met plenty of people who were willing to help me. And even now, like I said, Mason Archie and I are very good friends. He's probably my best friend, but he started off as my mentor. It was the same thing with Rodney Reed, RLR and Associates. If you guys don't know him, you should really look him up because he created almost all the signage down there on the canal, um, everywhere in Cambridge. He decided where the logos were going. I mean, Rodney's just huge. All the signage at the airports, all of that. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is find a mentor. But it was amazing how many agencies and how many designers I reached out to who were willing to help me. Now, there were a couple who told me they weren't going to tell me anything. Seriously. And these were two people that I really admired, and I got them in the same room. And I said, "How did you guys get started? What do I need to do to get to the next level?" They looked at each other, looked at me, and said, "We ain't telling you nothing, except I'm being nice," because they didn't say nothing. Okay. But when you find a mentor, really find a mentor, go see some agencies and things like that, because people want to be, tell me your name, Miss Kelly, Ellie. Ellie, people want to be able to say, "You know what? I knew Ellie when. I helped Ellie do this. I helped Ellie do that." Well, see, for me, when I was going to see different agencies and things, one thing that I would do, I would go show a portfolio. I would let them know, "Hey, I'm not asking you for a job. I'm only asking you for advice on what I've created." But the last thing I would usually ask them was, "Can I keep you updated on my progress? Can I come back?" And inevitably, they would say yes. So it's also about establishing contacts. Does that make sense? You really want to establish contacts and let people know you're out here. Like I was just telling this young lady, you've got to tell the world you're an artist. And you're going to be surprised. You let people bounce you around and they will. They really will bounce you around to this person, that person. There were several people that told me, "You know what? I don't have anything for you right now, but maybe you need to call this person. You need to call that person." And it really did work for me. Okay. Anything else? Anybody? Now, I will tell you this, and I don't mean this in arrogance. I'm asking you this in truth. If you saw anything up there that you liked, if you think I know what I'm talking about, if you think I had a little bit of skill, if I had more time, what would be the one question you should ask me? I'll tell you. You would ask me, would you mind looking at my work? And I would probably tell you yes. I want you all to remember that question. Whenever you come across any artist that has skills or anything, experience, you ask them to look at your work. All right? Is there anything else? Well, then, you coming up? I would like to take just a minute to say thank you.
Yep. Thank you all for attending. And again, warm Herron, thank you for Kevin James Wilson. Appreciate it.